Okay, so your notes on career success, I got to say, you're not messing around. We're talking corner office, CEO ambitions, the whole nine yards. And hey, even if you're not actually gunning for the top spot, the strategies we're diving into today, they're like pure gold for anyone who's serious, like really serious about taking their career to that next level.
Yeah, it's funny. When you really get into it, the core principles here, they apply whether you're just starting out or you've been in the game for years.
Totally. And that's what I love about this deep dive. It's like it gets right to the heart of it. Like we've got your notes here, plus this super insightful set of strategies for getting ahead in your career. We're talking like your cheat sheet for climbing that corporate ladder. And who knows, maybe even seeing a few more zeros on that paycheck along the way. But first things first, the source material starts with something that seems so basic, but it's where I feel like a lot of people, they kind of trip up.
Oh, tell me about it. You've got to have a plan.
Exactly. Setting those crystal clear goals,
Yeah.
right? You can't just be out there drifting along, hoping for the best. This isn't some lazy river. It's a climb,
Yeah.
right? Like, imagine you're going for a promotion, but you haven't even bothered to figure out what the job actually entails,
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
right? And it's the same with your whole career trajectory.
The source really hits on this idea of defining what success looks like, but like specifically for you, not some vague idea of being a CEO, but like what kind of company are you even aiming to lead? What impact do you want to make? Once you have that vision, then you can break it down.
They're like those stepping stones, right?
Exactly. Like what are the actual skills you need, the connections that are going to get you there?
Okay, so that brings up something I was thinking about. It's not just about those degrees and fancy titles anymore, right?
I mean, don't get me wrong, those have their place.
Yeah, for sure.
But this source, they really hammered home the importance of investing in yourself and like in a much broader sense.
Absolutely.
It's about more than just checking boxes.
Okay, so can you give us an example? Like, what does that actually look like in practice?
Sure, the source actually cited this recent study and it was fascinating. So while technical skills, they're obviously still important.
Of course, you got to have the know-how.
Right, but soft skills, like your communication, your leadership, those are now considered even more crucial for leadership positions.
Really. Even more than the hard skills.
According to this study, yeah. In fact, nearly 75% of executives they surveyed said they have a hard time finding candidates who are strong in that area.
Wow, 75%.
That's what they found.
Okay, so that really puts it into perspective. I always knew soft skills were important, but I mean, that number, that's huge. So it's not enough to just like have these soft skills tucked away in your back pocket, right? You've got to actually use them. Let people see what you're capable of.
Exactly. And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck. They understand the importance of things like communication and leadership, but they're not sure how to actually demonstrate those skills in a way that gets noticed, you know?
Yeah, it's like, am I supposed to just like barge into my boss's office every day with a PowerPoint presentation on my latest accomplishment?
Right. Nobody wants that.
So how do you walk that line? Being visible without being like, look at me, look at me.
Well, this is where the source gets really interesting. They talk about the importance of building a personal brand, which I know sounds kind of buzzwordy.
It does, a little. Like, am I supposed to like design a logo for myself now?
Right. But it's really not that complicated. It's more about just being strategic and intentional about how you present yourself, especially in this digital age. Your online presence, think of it as your 24/7 resume.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I've heard people say your LinkedIn profile is prime real estate, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But this source, they actually like break it down. They recommend specific platforms, strategies, even got into things like contributing articles to industry publications, which honestly, that feels a little intimidating to me.
Sure, it can be a bit daunting at first.
Yeah. Like, who am I to be writing articles? I'm no expert.
But that's the thing. Everyone's an expert in something. You have unique knowledge and experience. And sharing that, even in small ways, can make a big difference. This source talked about building a following on LinkedIn, for example. Just by sharing insights, engaging in conversations, becoming a thought leader in your field.
So it's not about just posting selfies and vacation photos.
Not exactly.
Okay, good to know. But that's actually really encouraging, though, because it means you don't have to wait for permission to start building your brand. You can just start doing it, right?
Absolutely. And that ties into that earlier point about taking initiative.
It's like the more you put yourself out there in a strategic way, of course,
Yes.
the more opportunities seem to come your way.
Right. It's not even necessarily about like self-promotion either. It's about adding value to the conversation. Share a thought-provoking article you read. Offer a different perspective on a challenge your industry is facing.
So be helpful and be visible.
Exactly. And that visibility, it's huge when it comes to the next point this source makes, which is building relationships with those higher up the ladder.
Okay, so networking. I knew this was coming,
Yeah.
but I always feel like I need like a crash course in how to do it without feeling awkward and uncomfortable.
Oh, I hear you. And this source actually had a really great point about that. They said it's not about schmoozing or being fake or anything like that. It's more about,
Being genuine.
yes, and also like understanding the goals and challenges of those in leadership positions and then thinking about how you can position yourself as someone who can help them achieve those goals.
So it's not just about like getting your name in front of them. It's about actually being helpful and valuable.
Exactly.
I like that.
And the source actually used this really interesting metaphor. They said it's like the difference between being a map maker and a tour guide.
Yeah.
So a map maker, they create the map, which is useful, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, maps are great.
But a tour guide, they actually take you through the terrain, they show you the hidden gems, they help you navigate the challenges along the way. They're both valuable, but the tour guide is offering a higher level of service.
I love that analogy
It's really good.
because it shows that you're not just there to like point out the obvious. You're there to actually guide and support.
Right. And I think leaders, they're looking for people who can do both. They need people who understand the big picture, but can also help them navigate the day-to-day challenges and come up with creative solutions.
So you're crushing it in your role, you're building your brand, you're strategically networking. But what about the part that everybody dreads? The like elephant in the room when it comes to career advancement.
You're talking about the salary negotiation.
Yeah, the dreaded salary negotiation. I am terrible at that. How do you even begin to approach that conversation without feeling like you're being greedy or pushy?
It's tough.
It is.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because the source, they do not shy away from this one at all. In fact, there's like an entire section dedicated to this very topic. And they start by kind of reframing the whole concept of negotiation.
How so?
Well, they say it's not about being greedy. It's about understanding your market value and then advocating for yourself to make sure you're being compensated fairly. It's about knowing your worth
Oh, I liked it.
and being able to articulate it confidently.
Which is honestly sometimes the hardest part.
Totally. But the source actually gave some really tactical advice on this. Like, they recommend doing your research, checking out sites like Glassdoor or salary.com to see what people in similar roles with your level of experience, what they're making. And then another thing they said, have a clear list of your accomplishments.
Oh, so important.
Not just like a laundry list of tasks, but actually quantify the impact of your work.
Side note to our listeners, start tracking those accomplishments now. Future you will thank you.
So true.
I wish I had started sooner.
Yeah. But the key is, go into that negotiation with a collaborative mindset. It's not about making demands. It's about having a conversation, finding a solution that works for both parties.
So basically, channel your inner diplomat.
Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, but what happens if, like, you've done all the things, you've upskilled, you've networked, you've mastered the art of the salary negotiation, but your company is just not willing or able to meet you where you need to be?
That's tough, but it happens.
It does. And I'm curious to see what this source had to say about it, because that feels like a really vulnerable position to be in.
It is. And this is where I think the source gets really real. They talk about the importance of being open to change.
Change. Okay, so you're telling me to ask for more money, A&D, be ready to walk away if I have to. That's bold.
Well, it's not about being reckless.
Okay, good.
It's more about recognizing that companies change, industries evolve. What might have been your dream job 2 years ago might not be the right fit for you anymore.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Sometimes you outgrow things, you know.
Exactly. And being open to new possibilities, whether it's a different role within your current company or exploring external opportunities, it's really key for that long-term career growth.
So it's about staying adaptable,
Yes,
knowing your worth,
absolutely.
and not being afraid to bet on yourself, even if it feels a little bit scary.
100%.
Okay, I've got to be honest. This is a lot to process. You're telling me to, like, up my skills game, become a networking ninja, master the art of negotiation, and be ready to walk away if I have to.
Yeah.
This whole thing, this whole CEO game plan, it's like, it's a marathon, right? Not a sprint.
You got it. It's funny you should say that because the source actually makes that exact comparison. They talk about how it takes consistent effort, long-term vision, and yeah, a good dose of that strategic hustle we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting, they also emphasize the importance of maintaining, some kind of work-life balance.
Because you can't just be on all the time. You'll burn out.
Exactly. And that's what they're getting at. It's not about burning yourself out in a blaze of glory. It's about pacing yourself so you can go the distance.
Totally. It's like that saying, right? You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. Taking care of yourself, your mental health, your physical health, it's not just some like nice to have.
Oh.
It's crucial for being able to perform at a high level consistently over time.
Okay, so for our listeners who are like ready to take all this amazing advice and run with it, what's one thing they can do like today to start putting this CEO game plan or really any big career goal into action? What's a good first step?
Honestly, I'd say go back and look at your goals. And I don't just mean those big, audacious, like conquer the world goals, but even just the smaller, more immediate things you can do, those milestones that'll move you in the right direction. What's one skill you can start working on? Is there someone you could reach out to this week? Make a connection. Start small, be consistent, and all those little things, they add up over time. You'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
It's true. Small steps, big results. And on that note, we're going to leave you with this final thought. And I don't know, it's kind of a provocative one. The source material we've been diving into, it's very focused on, climbing that traditional corporate ladder. But what if your path to success, to making a real impact, to having that financial freedom, what if it looks different? What if it means like becoming an entrepreneur, building something on your own terms, just something to think about as you're on your own journey? Keep those ambitions high and keep those to-do lists even higher.